Oh, that I stepped all over people on my way to the top, kind of a thing.
You did make a remark once that you got to keep moving.
Yeah.
And you can't take everybody.
You can't take everybody with you. Exactly.
Yeah. Is that opportunist, or is that what everybody
That's
does?
what, it's whatever you want to call it, I think that, to me, the definition of being an opportunist is someone who seizes the moment and gets the most out of what they can. And, certainly never having the intention of hurting anyone.
You're listening to MLVC, the Madonna podcast, your place to dance and sing, get up and do your thing, about all things Madonna. Louise, Veronica Ciccone.
Hey guys, it's Tony, and I'm so stupid.
And hey guys, it's Stefan. Thanks for joining us for another installment of the MLVC podcast. We have a very special guest with us today, producer and director of the documentary Madonna and the Breakfast Club. Everyone, please welcome Guy Guido to the podcast.
Welcome, Guy. Thanks for coming to Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Hi. Thanks for having me, guys.
How are things with you today, Guy? Are you living for love today?
I am, as always.
I was wondering if you had a chance to see Madonna before we get to talk about your movie about Madonna and in her early days. I was wondering if you had seen current Madonna and her Madame X tour.
I haven't seen Madame X yet.
Are you planning to see Madame X?
Yes, of course. I'm not sure where yet. I was supposed to go to the LA show, which is coming up, the opening night, which was postponed or moved or canceled. I'm not sure yet what's happening with that. But so I might still go to an LA show, but I'm also thinking about the Paris closing,
Nice.
which would be nice. And I love Paris, and yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen her in a foreign country, and I think it would be really fun to either Lisbon or Paris or London. I mean, any of it. I'd take any of it.
Guy
Yeah.
Guido loves Paris in the springtime, so
Yeah.
it might work out. No, and we all know that if you choose an opening night, you better think twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there seems to be a trend with Madame X canceling opening nights. I don't know if she's doing that on purpose or if it's
She's just switching it up. She's keeping us on our toes.
and that she does.
Yeah.
But so we actually had heard last night was the opening of her San Francisco shows, and our wonderful listener Alyssa, who was a beer bitch in Brooklyn and has seen a lot of Madame X shows during the course of the run, was able to be there. And I'm quoting Alyssa when I read this all to you. Horrible crowd. So San Francisco, I don't know what you're doing, but apparently everyone sat the entire performance. And for those people who were trying to stand, those people were telling the other people to sit. So I sat a little bit at the Madame X tour, but I mostly stood, and it'd be a little weird to have a whole audience sitting at the entire show. I mean, kind of strange. Apparently, the Polaroid went for $10,000 last night, but not in cash. Apparently, it was payment to be figured out afterwards. So I guess she's now accepting Venmo or PayPal.
Layaway?
Yeah. Because apparently nobody offered anything else in cash. So San Francisco needs to step it up a little bit. Okay. Apparently, the beer bitch was less interview and consisted of her teaching some people how to cha-cha-cha. Some tall guy brought her the beer to the stage, and she exited to the side because apparently San Francisco does not have a middle row. And according to Alyssa, she was in a cute mood. She kept saying art and talking about her raspy voice. So that's our small update for the San Francisco shows. After San Francisco, she is off to the Sin City known as Vegas.
I'm interested in seeing what happens in Vegas as far as her timing on going on stage, because I know that these venues have really strict, guidelines. But then again, in Vegas, she could go on at 3 a.m. and they'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I've heard people say that they don't really know what time it is when they're in Vegas. Like if you're inside the casino, things like it could be the middle of the night or the middle of the day. Yeah, it's like,
you know what, Stefan? The same could be said about a Madame X show. If you don't have a non-Apple compliant watch, you really don't know what time it is. And it's funny because I keep reading reviews of past shows, and they all say that the running time was 2 hours and 20 minutes or 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I didn't realize it was that long.
No, I have no
But,
idea how
I
long she
mean,
went for.
past I waited 2.5 hours, but
Yeah.
Yes,
these are the things you have to look forward to, Guy.
yes,
Yeah.
rolling out the Madam X red carpet, arrival times and departure times. Yeah, and I'm curious also to see what happened in San Francisco because the BART stops running at like 12:50.
Right. How are people getting home?
Yeah, how are people getting home? But San Francisco is also the home of Lyft. So.
Uber, Lyft, yeah.
All right, so
pedicab, you never know.
well, you don't. So I'm so excited to have Guy Guido here. I've watched this film several times on Amazon Prime. Actually, I paid for it the first time on
Thank you.
iTunes when it first came out because I know that it played in a couple of theaters here in New York. Didn't it play at like Village East?
We did in New York. We did a premiere screening in Prospect Park, actually.
Oh, okay.
But in the States, there was no theatrical release. The only theatrical releases we had were Russia
Oh, wow.
and Brazil.
Okay.
Yeah, and every country decides whether or not they're going to do a theatrical. It's a whole business thing whether it's worth it to do that kind of marketing and or just go straight to pay-per-views and yeah.
Yeah, because when I first started seeing videos here and there on YouTube, and I was like, okay, I need to know everything about this movie. I need to find it, and I guess I thought I missed a release, but hey, I got it as soon as it was available, and now that it's on Amazon Prime, word is getting out there, and a lot of people are watching it.
And Hulu.
And Hulu, yes,
Yep.
including a lot of our listeners who later on, when I ask you some questions, I'll let you know which listeners have asked those because they're also curious about the development of the film and what you have to say about it.
Mhm.
So first of all, I know that you went to NYU Tisch, which is a very respected, production,
Film school.
film school. Yes. So, are you also from the New York area?
I grew up on Long Island.
Oh, wow.
I was born in Brooklyn, grew up on Long Island. Yeah.
So,
I went to Hofstra.
What's that?
I went to Hofstra.
Oh, you did?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
So-
a Long Island
Long Island,
University,
yep.
in case anyone doesn't know.
so tell me about how your love of film, your love of Madonna, kind of informed this project, and how it all came together. If this is something that's been gestating for a while, or you just decided one day to make a movie about Madonna.
Right. Well, I think what I discovered in filmmaking, you should always the most successful thing is going to come from what you're most passionate about, or things you write what you know, or build a project on something that you're going to be passionate about being in for a few years, because that's what it takes to make a movie. And so going back to my introduction to Madonna, though, and why I might have become so passionate about the subject, this is going way, way back.
Take it all the way back.
Yeah. So this is about, I'd say, very early 1983. No one really knew who Madonna was at this time. She didn't have a full album out yet. It was just a couple of singles that were released at this point. There was this little nightclub on Long Island in Huntington that was called Images, and they were having some performer coming to perform, and my friends and I, who would go to this place regularly, were like, "Oh, let's go to Images tonight. There's some singer named Madonna going to come." Or, "All right, sure, whatever,
Oh my God, you're killing me.
Yeah. And so we go, and it wasn't overly crowded because, again, nobody knows who she was. And I want to say, I think it was a weeknight, actually, like a Thursday or something. So it wasn't really crowded. And we just, having our regular night dancing. And then the DJ kind of asks us to all get off the floor and this performance is going to come out. And she comes out and walks right, because again, I was mentioning to you before we started this that I like to be up front when I'm watching shows. So I was standing right at the front of the dance floor, for this, whoever she was going to be.
It could have been Taylor Dane for all you know.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So she comes with a couple of dancers. I'm from what I remember, I probably Christopher. There was at least 2 dancers with
And
her.
Erica probably, right?
Yeah. So they walked right past me, get onto the stage, and she did Physical Attraction,
Oh, so good.
Burning Up. I think that's it.
Did she sing
everybody.
live or was it a track?
It was a track.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she was singing over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I remember immediately being just mesmerized by her. And remember, this is suburbia. This is suburban Long Island, kind of people that are just, in a little bubble of suburbia. They're not like, and young people, they're not really going into Manhattan much, whatever. So she was sort of like this strange looking, if you look at her face, she was gorgeous. But everything else was kind of weird for suburban Long Island. So
Like
the
the styling, the way,
yes,
like
the
her outfit,
hair
because
was
it was
kind
all
of
very like East Village.
yes.
Girls
crazy.
were not dressing that way at the mall yet.
What was that?
I said girls were not at the mall dressed like
no,
that.
No,
Yeah.
not yet. No. So, the crazy ratty hair and the tie in it, and I remember distinctly she was wearing, it was a white man's T-shirt cut with holes in it and like black magic marker words or whatever, the floppy black skirt and little booties. So, I was like in awe and just sort of fixated on this girl, and her eyes were just like incredible. That was the thing I remember, and her skin.
Even back before MDNA skincare was around.
Yes.
Flawless.
Yes.
Well, you know the story. Her and Debbie Mazar used to go get facials in the East Village from this heroin addict that she says gave her the best facials she's ever had her whole life.
Yeah, and
Really?
she was always very, very like aware of and taking care of her skin, even when she was very young. It seems, but it was gorgeous, flawless skin, and these eyes that really stick with me. I mean, this was 30-something years ago.
Yeah.
So after the performance, and again, like the people in the crowd were kind of, I don't know if they knew what to make of her. Do we like this? We kind of like this song. Oh, this song sounds familiar.
Had you heard the songs?
I think I
before?
had heard everybody vaguely, because it wasn't like it wasn't on pop music radio stations. It was just in the dance clubs.
Yeah.
So I remember vaguely sort of sounding familiar to me. But the other two songs I don't think I knew. But after the show, and you could even see some people kind of snickering through the show, like, "Who is this? What is this?"
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
How times have changed.
Yeah. And so after the show, I wanted to meet her. So I went, me and my friend, we went, there was no backstage. It was just a little club. So her dressing room was the office, so we went and we knocked on the office door and we said, "Hi, could we maybe get an autograph?" And he shut the door and said, "Give me a second." Then she came out, and it was just her. And my friend was the lucky one. She got, it was actually a promotional photograph that Sire had given it, and so she got that signed to her. And she only had one to give out. And but then I'm embarrassed to say I smoked at the time. So I had a pack of Marlboro Lights, and she signed that, "Love, Madonna." That's all I had in my hand. Like, "Can you sign this?"
Yeah.
So she signed my pack of Marlboro Lights, and I had it for many years. But what I did was I cut it out off the box, and I just kept it like in my sock drawer.
Oh no.
My mother going through my things. "Oh, what is this cigarette thing?" Threw it out.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mom.
Yeah. But again, from that moment, no one really knew who she was. She didn't have a full album out. But the next day, I went running to the record stores, which were a thing at the time.
Yeah.
Sam Goody.
Yeah.
Tower Records.
Yeah. And I bought a single, but
On 45.
not the 45. It was actually a 12-inch single. Yeah. But from that point, again, this was early '83. Things moved very fast. I think she did another show after that at Uncle Sam's, which is the more well-known show, Uncle Sam's in Levittown, Long Island. I wanted to go to that one, and I went. One of the people we were with didn't have, because we were all underage, I remember at the time. So it was easier to get into a club being underage because they didn't have photographs on your ID at the time. It's just a piece of paper. But one of the girls, and this was a double date, so I was me and a friend and his girlfriend and this girl who I was on a date with, and she didn't have ID, so we couldn't get in. All I wanted to do was I didn't care about the stage. I wanted to be in the club.
Sorry, girl.
That would have been the perfect day to come out of the club.
Yeah.
Hi,
Listen,
I'm
guys.
gay, and I have to see Madonna.
Yeah, I gotta go.
I must go and fulfill my destiny.
Yeah, and then to make it worse, as we're pulling out, I see her. Now again, this is pre everything, so she didn't come in
Pre-Freddie Demand.
yeah, she didn't come in a fancy car. She was in a little regular car, but I see this car pull in, and she's in the back seat with the hair, and I'm like,
Probably complaining about something.
Right.
as we're leaving, yeah. So,
Oh my god!
but
That's amazing that you were able to catch her before her, before Like a Virgin, basically.
yeah, before that, before Borderline, before any of that.
Yeah,
you
the
know?
era you're describing, the visual cue that I have is her performing on Dancing on Air, Dance Party USA.
Like
so
that-
it was around that time.
around that time,
Yeah.
that look, yeah. And so,
I mean, this is before even like cell phones, or I mean, you probably didn't even have like a disposable camera
No.
to like take
No.
pictures of her.
You had to have your Kodak disc.
right.
yeah, nothing, no
But, I
pictures.
mean, were people like? Do those places have a picture of her from when she performed?
Uncle Sam's does.
Oh, they do.
Uncle Sam's
Okay,
has a
good.
video.
Really?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, yeah.
Nice.
So, but this first club I went to, they didn't, you know. So that was probably several months before Uncle Sam's, when she was even less well known.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was going to say, things escalated very fast. So by the time Uncle Sam's, which was only a few months later, more people knew of her. The club was packed.
Wow.
So, and she still didn't have a full album out yet. But the Physical Attraction, Burning Up, there was a music video now for Burning Up.
Mm-hmm.
So people were more aware. And then from that point to the first album, it just months. She went from, who is this person we're going to see at this club? I don't know, to superstar.
Yeah, heavy rotation on MTV and on Top 40 Radio.
Yeah, within like 6-7 months, maybe.
It's impressive how, because when I was watching your documentary and you sort of talk about how fast her fame came, the instantaneous thing that I thought of was she was doing this without social media. You know, like this was it was a perfect storm of like her drive and her motivation and like the birth of MTV and her having like amazing music videos that early on and this interesting style. And it was just, it was funny how like, how fast, because it doesn't happen that fast anymore.
Right.
Unless you have like a PR company backing
Exactly.
you. And,
the whole machine. Yeah.
So where did you get the idea that you wanted to make a film about Madonna, specifically about her inception, her early years, you know, how she created herself, you know, literally on the streets of New York?
Yeah. Being a fan, I had read the early biographical books and stuff like that, and I'd known about this band Breakfast Club, but it was always just sort of skimmed over, we touched on, and it didn't really go into too much detail. And I knew that there had to be more to this, and I'm also, just in general, I'm always fascinated by like origin stories of celebrities, whether it's Marilyn Monroe, James, the iconic ones, who they were before. And again, like you're saying, there was no internet, there was no way for us to sort of see into their life the way we can now. So when I was first introduced to Madonna, as I was saying before, she was this enigma, she was this, and all you could do was imagine, well, what does this girl do every day? Does she just sort of walk around spray painting her name on walls? And like, you just, and also I'm like, it's 16 years old, and so she wasn't like human to me,
She's an enigma wrapped in a mystery, covered in bangles.
Yeah. And
I like that, Tony. That's good.
And luckily, I feel like it was a good thing in a way, because we didn't have access to them the way we have today, to know what they had for breakfast or whatever, all those details that sort of make them human.
Right. She's not posting her Instagram stories back in 1984.
Yeah, exactly. So she was this sort of, I don't know, what you see in the music video, you think that's how she walks around every day. And like, and I remember going into Manhattan, maybe we'll find her,
I thought...
Oh, go ahead.
I thought she was like this elusive man trap, because every time she was on MTV, she was very snarky and very flirtatious with the guys that were interviewing her, because they always had guys interviewing her,
Yeah.
And they'd always be like, "Oh, Madonna, she's hot stuff," And,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at her and I'm like, she's beautiful, but I'm not really looking to sleep with her,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to dance and sing,
Yeah, and just, it's like you can't look away. It says his face, it's like, gay, straight, whatever. When I was mesmerized by her when I first saw her, it wasn't because I was attracted to her sexually. It was because you just can't look away. She was that, like, she just captured your attention. You just couldn't, stop staring, you know. So then, getting back to the Breakfast Club stuff and the origin story, I wanted to make a film that, again, I'd be passionate about making for a few years, and then I could get off the ground myself financially. Because in filmmaking, you know, that's one of the big barriers in making a movie is who's going to finance this. Um, and so, doing a documentary, technology has advanced enough where you can do it. You don't need $1 million to make a movie. So I figured, let me do something about someone that or something that I am extremely interested in, that I can raise the money myself or with some help, you know, realistically to make this movie. So Dan Gilroy was someone that I had started interacting with. I don't know if you guys know of my short film, Physical Attraction.
I have not been able to find it, so if you'll lead me and our listeners in that direction so we could look
I
at
recently put it on YouTube.
Okay,
So you
great.
can see it now on YouTube. And
I'm guessing it has something to do with Madonna.
yeah, well, it's actually the story that I just told you earlier about how I
Uh-huh.
initially met her at the club. It's basically that.
Oh,
It sort
awesome.
of shows.
Fictional or documentary
It's
style?
it's fictional.
Okay.
Yeah, it's narrative, and there's definitely it's not completely 100% accurate to what really happened. It's
So who's playing you in the movie?
an actor. He's a really talented guy, Jake Miller, and I auditioned him, and
Oh, I
yeah.
can't wait to see it now.
Yeah. So it's a fun.
Did you shoot it at the actual location where she performed? Is that place even there?
No. This was this is a narrative film. We had to just find locations to be the club and various things. Because I came in contact with her again after that in real life, which you'll see in the movie, in the short film, how that all happened. So it's sort of the film is sort of about my introduction to Madonna. But in making that film, I knew that I had a bigger idea to follow this, and I knew that it was going to involve Breakfast Club. So and this might sound a little manipulative, but it's more like forward thinking.
Not on this podcast.
So I contacted, I figured, let me use some of the Breakfast Club, the later Breakfast Club music in this film as a way to sort of introduce myself to the guys. And so I reached out to Stephen Bray first and asked how I could license Right on Track.
Oh my
love
god!
that song.
FYI, when I was finished watching that movie, I was like, I must know some of the Breakfast Club music. I just don't realize what it is. So I looked it up, and Right on Track came up first, and I was like, oh my god, I love this song.
Like,
back
you knew
in
the song.
80s. Yes,
Yeah.
I knew it as soon as I heard those chords, and I was like, oh my god, of course.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Breakfast Club from the very beginning. And actually, what's weird is that the first time I ever heard them, they did a cover of Drive My Car by the Beatles
Oh, wow.
for that movie License to Drive. It's in the opening credits. And I was like, I know this is a good, remake of this song. It's very kind of housey, very 80s, high energy. And then I bought their record like a week later, and this is like 87 or 88. And I was like, oh my God, this sounds just like Madonna. I had no idea.
Wow.
Until later when I was reading liner notes and I saw Stephen Bray, I was like, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that connection.
Yeah.
They know the music, like I said, but they don't connect it to Madonna. So
it's all there, people.
Yeah. So Stephen, he responded, pretty quickly, and we started going back and forth about the business of the song. That and the song "Kiss and Tell" I also licensed. So, but I'm not going to get into too much of the details about the business with licensing music, but it can get expensive, especially when you're dealing with the master rights of a major label like MCA, which is what the songs were from. But Stephen suggested, we can, rather than trying to license the actual recording that's on the album from MCA, you could just license the songwriting rights, which is a different side, and we can have Dan do a new version.
Oh, nice.
For you, and which was amazing.
That saved you some pennies.
Yes, a lot. So that's what they did. It's all their music. So Stephen had all the tracks. Dan did a new vocal. And with that, I introduced myself to Dan Gilroy. And then Dan and I just started going back and forth on Facebook. And Dan's just an amazing guy. And he's just, we had a lot in common politically, socially. creatively, we just sort of hit it off. And so eventually, I did the short, finished the short, and then I wanted to introduce the idea of doing this bigger
Yeah.
picture. And I asked Dan, would you consider doing this film with me? And his initial response was no, like a hard no. More so because it was just the emotional things that it brought up for him. He didn't want to revisit that. And, I said, I understand, I'm not emotionally attached to this the way you are. But if you ever consider it, it's something that I would love to talk about. And within a few weeks, he wrote me again and said, I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I trust you, and I think I want to do this. So that's how it began. And I started going back and forth with Dan with just questions written, to him in email. And then those would spark more questions. And we just were going back and forth like that, just so I could start to get a bigger, broader picture of what those days were. Then once I had Dan on board, it was easier for me to go to the other guys. I went to Gary Burke, and Dan's doing this. Like, okay,
Once you get one, you can get a bunch.
Yeah. So and then Ed Gilroy, we weren't sure if Ed was going to want to do it. Ed was kind of feeling like, well, don't people know about this already? Like, what more can we say? But then I spoke to him, and I'm like, no, they really don't. Not this deeply. So then Ed was on board, and Stephen Bray. Obviously, he's not in the movie. The timing for him pretty much didn't work out, so I couldn't do his interview. But he was great, and he was really just cooperative with me. Nice guy, good guy. But with just speaking to Gary, Dan, Ed, and then Norris Burroughs, I was able to fill in any holes, with Stephen, because as you know, they speak about Stephen and how that all transpired. So that was how we got off the ground with making this. Yeah.
Okay, so we all know that in the 90s, outlets like VH1, E, MTV, they all had their versions of Madonna documentaries, that were, 90 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. And, they always featured the same players, it was always the same talking heads. It was, people talking about Madonna as if they knew her, but for the most part, it was all mythology. Your film is very different. Your film is a documentary, but it's also a narrative, and it's also recreations of photos of actual film footage. It's a different beast altogether. So my question is, how did you decide to just focus on the truth, on kind of stepping away from the mythology that was created around Madonna's, coming up in the late 70s, early 80s in New York?
When you say mythology, I'm assuming you're talking about like the mythology of how she got her start.
Exactly. A lot of people say, oh, she, walked on the backs of all these men, and, she screwed that person over, she screwed this person over. And, when, there were all those books that came out in the 80s and 90s, and, they all had they're very pointed about, how Madonna came up. A lot of them are like, oh, she found Camille, and she, took everything she could from her and then moved on to the next person, and through the years, you just understand that was not the fact.
Right.
These are just a lot of people's voices, and that's all we heard for a long time. So what I'm saying is that in your film, we actually get to really hear this truth for the first time.
Yeah, and I was really like I was happy to dispel those myths. Going into it, all I had was the myths. Just like you're talking about. So I wasn't really sure how this story was going to go, how it was going to unfold. When you're making a documentary, that's sort of, you have an idea of what this is going to be, but making a documentary is really like an exploration. You're kind of digging for treasure, and in those initial questions with Dan is when the story started to open for me. And then with getting the information from him would initiate questions that I had for the other guys to corroborate what he was saying about this and this. Certain points in the story would jump out at me like, wow, this is really interesting. I need Gary to talk about this, and then Ed to talk about this, to get all sides of this particular situation. But as far as what you're saying about her, the mythology of her sort of stepping on people and moving on, and that's not. First of all, that's not what these guys thought of her. Camille Barbone is a different story, and I spoke with Camille. I can't get too into that, but I wanted to focus on Breakfast Club. That's what this movie is about.
Because it's more about her evolution as a musician.
Yes,
it's
100%.
not about how she created a look or who she was dating. It's not about that. It's about, she started out as a drummer in a band, and it took it from there.
Yeah. And what I learned too, even with Camille, with the guys in the band, she didn't step over or screw over anyone. What it was she wasn't going to hang back with you if you were not moving to the next level with her. And I think that's understandable for anyone. If she thought that you could keep up, you're going to stay with her.
Yeah.
You look at someone like Liz Rosenberg, who was with her from the beginning as a publicist. Liz kept up. If Liz was not keeping up, she would have moved on to somebody else. But
if you're not ready to jump, Madonna's not going to let you.
Yeah, it's not. Exactly. So it wasn't about stepping over or hurting anyone. It was about, we're doing this together. Okay, yes, certain people brought her from here to here. But now that's as far as you're going to be able to, go with her. But she wants to go here now.
Yeah.
And that's generally, what happened. And I think they all knew it. The guys in the band, they were musicians, legit musicians. They wanted to be in a band. They enjoyed playing out, but it wasn't life or death for them. And for Madonna, it was.
Yeah.
That was the difference. And so, she wasn't going to sit back and just have fun playing in a band. She knew what she wanted to do with this. And if you didn't have that same mentality, ambition, drive to go that, she had to go. Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But, and I think it's evident in the film, too, that on that point, you see that she revisits them on the set of Kiss and Tell, that video. Now, at that point, she was well into, I wouldn't say she was at the height, but she was huge at that point. This was like maybe Who's That Girl era. So she was a huge, huge star. And if she was just, going with the mythology, if she was just someone who stepped over and moved on and never looked back, why did she go to the set of Kiss and Tell?
I thought it was really sweet that she showed up.
She was there.
Right, and she had a very prolific songwriting relationship with Stephen Bray up until 1999.
Oh, yeah, that continued on and on, exactly. Like Stephen Bray kept up.
Yeah.
He was able to, he was an amazing songwriter, producer, and, so yeah, she was there to support them, be there for them, and
it's a shame she couldn't be in that video. Like if she was on set, it's like, put her in hair and makeup right now.
Yeah,
get her
really.
in that video.
Right.
Well, and I also think like with the people who are writing those salacious mythology tales about Madonna, I always looked at it as those are the people that like she left behind because she had her path, and they're angry about it. They're angry that she got famous because they weren't pulling their weight, and so they're sort of like trying to get back at her by writing salacious tales and whatnot. It's like, get over it, people.
Yeah, there was all that stuff in the early 90s where the detractors, were coming out of the woodwork and, people ate it up, I mean, Geraldo did like, two Madonna episodes per season in the late 80s, early 90s, slamming her. And,
And also part of the mythology too, I think, about like they tried to undermine her as a musician. She was this Pop-Tart that just sort of came from nowhere, slept her way into a record deal, and she's going to fade out soon. But as you see in the movie, she's a musician. She started from square one, learning how to play the drums, then onto guitar, then keyboard. And, I'm not a musician. And I wasn't aware until I started getting our actress, Jamie Auld, into drum lessons, how hard it is to play the drums.
Oh, yeah.
It's not easy. You think, oh, you just want to bang around. It's very, very hard. It takes a lot of skill and coordination and rhythm, obviously. And on the early tracks where Madonna was playing the drums, there's a song called "Curtis Come Back" that's in the film. And if you listen to those drums, that's Madonna, straight up drumming, and she's great. And then she learned how to play guitar, and she learned how to play the keyboard, which she would play regularly out with the band, and learn how to write songs. And she came up like any other musician would grow with learning how to work in music.
She's reusing those same skills in the current Madam X tour. So she is drumming on the bongos.
Really?
Yeah, she's got a percussion moment in the show.
She's guitaring during American Life, and she is keyboarding during Future.
Wow.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about Jamie. We'd be remiss if we did not. She is the incredible actress that plays Madonna in this film, in the recreations, reenactments. She is striking to look at. So we have a listener at princeeric.ea. That's our friend Eric Andary. And his question is, how did the casting of Jamie occur? Was that something that sparked the project, or was it something that happened organically and unexpectedly during, the development of the film?
Yeah. Okay, so I was trying to cast the actress through the regular routes of casting agencies, and I wasn't having luck because I'm finding talented actors, but I knew that if this wasn't just right, it was going to really distract people and take them out of it. So it was a frustrating thing, but so Sunday is cheat day, and I would go to this donut store every Sunday.
I like where this is going already.
Wait, which one? Because I love donuts.
Donut Plant in Chelsea
Oh, so
okay,
good.
on 23rd Street.
The donut that eats like a cake.
Yeah. So I saw Jamie working behind the counter.
Wait a minute. Let me stop you
for a
there.
second.
Wasn't Madonna's first job in New York at a donut
Yeah,
shop?
I know. And sometimes when I tell this story, they're like, "Oh, stop! Really? Where did you find her?" She worked at a donut store.
Okay.
I mean, you can call Donut Plant.
Oh my God.
This can be verified, folks.
Yes.
That's
so
crazy.
I saw her the first time, and I said to my husband, and I saw her in profile, and maybe because my first career is in beauty and hair and makeup and stuff. Maybe I just look at things differently. So I'm not sure that everyone would see a profile and instantaneously recognize Madonna, but I did, and because it's such a unique profile, and not many people have it, and there's this sort of flatness to her nose. It's almost like Asian, and this girl had that, and the whole profile was there. But I said, okay, now if she turns around and has the right eyes, I'm just gonna die, and she did, and I'm like,
Die another day.
so
Mr.
like nudging my husband, I'm like, look at that girl. Do you see?
Who's that girl?
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, oh yeah. But again, I was in the middle of casting this, and I actually had someone almost cast. I'm not gonna say names. She works.
She didn't make it.
We had issues with the Screen Actors Guild. Because apparently, not to get too detailed again, but when you're making a documentary, trying to make it a union SAG film, as a documentary, you have to pay the actors the minimum of $900 a day, and so which is the maximum contract of SAG, and you can't mix. You have to do all SAG people, which means everybody needs to be paid $900 a day. We could not afford to do that. There was no way. So I tried to work with them, and they tried to work with me. Honestly, SAG, it's just a rule we have. And I think because most documentaries don't use actors.
Right.
And there's usually the narrator, and it's one day, and that's it. So it's more affordable. And at the end of the day, they couldn't work with me. They couldn't change the rules. So I had to tell this SAG actor, it's not going to work out. But now we were like 2 weeks away from starting to shoot. So I said, and I was in LA actually, I said to my husband, go talk to the donut girl. See what's happening. Maybe she wants to be an actor. She can't just be working in a donut store.
How old was Jamie when you found her?
She was 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she was the exact age.
Yeah. It was just like everything aligned
All thanks to a French cruller.
Yeah, or the creme brulee. If you ever go to Donut Plant,
Yeah.
creme brulee donuts. So he approached her. He just came up to her and said, "Hey, has anyone ever told you look like Madonna?" And she's like, "Sometimes." And he said, "Well, my husband's doing this project. Here's his card. If you're interested in acting. So she was a little taken back, like, what? I don't understand what this is. So again, she's 20 years old. So she called her mother, and her mother's like, "Well, meet them in a public place and see what they have to say. So we met at Starbucks, and we just started talking. I started filling her in on what we were doing with the project. I had already interviewed Dan and the subjects already, so I knew where this was going. I knew the narrative, things that I wanted to recreate, and she was in. And so we just immediately, I got her into drumming lessons, acting lessons, dance lessons, guitar lessons, everything that I knew I was going to need to have her do.
Was she a Madonna fan?
She, I wouldn't say she was a fan. She knew who, it's hard to hear this as a longtime Madonna fan. It's
Right,
like,
yeah.
she knew who she was.
Well, because of her age. I figured,
Yeah,
her age, she
yeah.
might not have been
Right.
super Madonna
Right.
related,
Exactly. Like, again, she knew who she was. A couple, maybe a fan of certain songs that she had heard of, but that was it. So she had her research to do.
So I was going to say, did you put her through like a Madonna boot camp?
I did.
Like, in 2 days, you locked her in a room and were like, listen to this, watch this.
A lot more than 2 days. It was like, seriously, like, I gave her like a whole rundown. You need to watch this movie, that movie. I sent her YouTube interviews, any early interview I could find of Madonna. Watch this, and she did. And then I had to have her, because as you see in the movie, there's these audio recordings that we have of Madonna and Dan.
Oh my God, where did you get those? Those are great. Did
Yeah.
he just give those over to you?
Yeah, so Dan gave me those, and there's more of them than that's in the movie. It's an hour and a half movie. I couldn't do everything, but I put a good chunk of them are in the movie. But what I wanted to do was have the real audio recordings segue into the reenactments. And so for Jamie and Calvin, who plays Dan Gilroy, they had to get that down verbatim, and they did. I mean, if you hear the original continue throughout and compare the two, it's identical. Every breath that they take, every nuance is exactly the same.
Well, and it's a strange conversation already. Like the conversation, when I was watching it, I'm like, this is a real conversation they were having, because it's like the subject matter that they're talking about is kind of weird, and then the vocal patterns that they both have. Like Madonna doesn't sound like the Madonna that we know today. Like she sounds very like unfiltered and just like almost kind of strange. And then Dan Gilroy is like, he does these weird
these little
like there's just like they interject at weird times. It's all like it's just very, very strange.
Yeah, it is, and just the conversation itself is just out there. So I think it was because people always ask me, well, why were they talking like and recording themselves? And I think because.
But we all did that when we had tape recorders before.
In the 70s.
Yeah,
it was a new
70s,
thing.
Yeah.
It was like a new cool thing you could do. You could tape record yourself.
And basically, it's what people are doing with their Instagram stories.
Yeah.
Like if you watch Instagram stories today, you're like, people, why the fuck are you filming this? And same thing.
Yeah.
Just in audio.
Yeah. Let's just tape ourselves talking, and that's what they did. So for Jamie, she lived with that recording for like weeks, just walking down the streets. Like people would be looking at her like she's crazy, because she's be having that conversation on the street, getting it down. Like I said, the timing, every breath, So
No, I love that, and that also brings to mind the other device you use in the film, where a photograph or a film that that from her early life becomes footage with Jamie. Like I'm speaking specifically of the video and the photo from the 70s where her hair is short and she's wearing the like orange dress from University of Michigan.
Yeah.
And then you completely recreate that, and I love how you do that. It's beautiful. It looks great.
Yeah. I think for anything that existed, like photographs that existed, because there weren't many from this time. There's no real video footage of her from this time other than Dancing in Michigan.
Yeah.
But if there was a photograph from that time, I wanted to replicate that from head to toe, every button.
And you did a great job. But it's funny when you see how you do it, where you'll have the video start first and then segue into the picture, and you realize this is a very strange pose that they're all doing. Like,
Yeah.
why on earth would anyone pose this way? But like, if you just look at the picture, it just makes sense because it's static.
Yes.
But then seeing them sort of like get into that, you're like, why on earth are they doing this? Like, it's very funny. It's sort of like, it's a bigger like sociological thing of like what we as people do the moment prior to a picture, and like what's going on and what's happening. And so it's interesting to sort of like see that life a little before that you've sort of like created out of nothing.
Right. That was fun, bringing the photographs to life.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So one of the more talked about parts of Madonna's early career is when she goes to Paris for 9 months to work with Patrick Hernandez, but no one has ever seen a photo of that time. Did you find anything out about that time, or was that also, she took off, did her thing, didn't tell anybody else about it, and then came back and resumed what she was working on before?
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of photos from there if you really, really dig deep. But I didn't want to scatter this too much because it's only an hour and a half movie. So I touch on that, but I didn't want to dig too deep into while she was there.
Yeah.
Because it's about Madonna and the Breakfast Club, not just
Exactly.
Madonna, but I needed to tell that part because it's part of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great because she comes back and she's like, all right, guys, I'm even more focused now, and let's put this band together.
Yeah, and I think, going there, I think it was such a frustration for her because she thought it was going to be something that it didn't really become. So she just wanted to get back home because and like you see when she's writing the letters to Dan from Paris in the movie, which I have those letters here for you to look at, Barbara.
Oh my God.
Look at show and tell.
Yeah, show and tell. So I have the actual letters, which are, and again, not every letter is in the movie. Not every word she said in the letters are in the movie. You'll get to read them. But what I pulled from the letters, what I thought was the most interesting things, and what I found was interesting was that she was so, at such a young age, 20 years old, 21 years old, she was so driven. And so her frustration in Paris was, I am not working enough because there's nothing for me to do. I want to be working towards something and there's nothing happening. And instead of just relaxing and hanging out in Paris as a 20-year-old having fun, which is what you would think a normal 20-year-old girl would want to do.
No, she's looking for the
She's
hustle.
like, let's go. Let's get this going.
I swear to God, if she could find a way to bottle that drive, like forget the skincare line, Madonna. Just find the Madonna drive,
Push by Madonna.
Put it in a bottle, and let me just inject it or pill form or something. I could totally use that.
Yeah.
So I have a question from another listener at Thornycroft, and this is our friend Adam Kennedy in Chicago. And he wants to know about the process of recreating the costumes, the clothes that, we first saw in photos and other film footage. What costume designer did you work with, and how did you guys pull that off? Because that's another feat that I'm amazed by.
Yeah. Again, I mean, this wasn't a big budget movie. So a lot of I wore a lot of hats. So from hair, makeup to wardrobe, locations, just everything. But there were certain things that I cannot do. I'm not a dressmaker or pattern maker, so I needed to find a legit costume designer for certain pieces. So I initially posted on Mandy.com to find a costume maker that might, and this went with a lot of the crew in the movie. I wanted to find people that were good at what they do, that I could afford to pay a little bit, but that the bigger payoff for them would be to get a feature film credit in a film that would go somewhere and make some noise. And that was the payoff for them. So I had to convince them that this was going to be a movie that was going to be released, and your name is going to be on it as the costume designer or the director of photography or whatever else crew, other crew that I hired. So I luckily found this incredible pattern maker. Jessica McNear is her name. And I gave her the butterfly dress that you see when she's performing Cold Wind and stuff.
Yeah.
She made that. She made the the flower dress that she wears in the alleyway of the synagogue.
I
the
keep
pink-
going back to that dress. I love
Yeah,
it.
that and I think those are. Oh, and she made
The
the
leotard.
the leotard. Yes, the pink leotard.
Mm-hmm.
And the Peter Contest dancing in Michigan orange sort of jumper thing.
Mm-hmm.
She made that. And that, now again, the fabrics, the prints on those fabrics are very, very specific.
Yeah.
And again, I wanted everything to be just right. So it was me going out to fabric stores and hunting through rolls of fabric and rolls of fabric for days and weeks. Finding.
You were a regular at Mood.
What's that?
You were a regular at Mood.
Yeah.
They were at a Mood fabric store. You're strolling in, and they're like, "Oh, hello, guy. Yeah, go ahead, have fun."
Yeah. So, and again, because I wasn't paying them that much money, I couldn't tell them, you need to go hunt for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I would do it. And then I would bring them fabric and then she'd make it. Two patterns we couldn't find. The butterfly dress, the base fabric, she made the dress out of that with no butterflies on it. I found another fabric with just the butterflies, and me and my husband would sit up at night cutting out butterflies while watching TV, cutting out. I need more.
I hope you gave your husband credit in the credits.
and then glue them on.
Okay, that's love.
Yeah.
So your husband, that's the stick to that. You found a good one there.
Why aren't you cutting out butterflies? What are you doing? So the dancing in Michigan dress jumper thing, we couldn't get anywhere near close to it. So what I did was I took a photograph of the actual outfit, and there are companies that can print onto fabric.
Good to know.
And make fabric, like that. So that's
Tony's developing ideas for Halloween next year already.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and then I also met another costume designer, Don Ye, his name is.
Mm-hmm.
He did a lot of the work at Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, the replicas.
Oh yeah, where Madonna is featured prominently.
Yeah, he's great at doing replicas. So he came in and he replicated the Little Madonna communion dress. When Madonna's receiving communion, we have an little actress playing her. So he made that down to every little detail and frilly things. The outfit she wore at Max's Kansas City, which is kind of like a pajama thing, but you would think you could find, you can't find. So we had to have him with the piping and everything. Yeah. So he made that.
I'm going to commission him to make me a Desperately Seeking Susan jacket. I've been looking for that my entire life.
Which jacket?
The Desperately Seeking Susan jacket.
Oh, yeah.
With the pyramid. I want that.
Yeah.
Well, I want the black Gautier hoodie from Causing a Commotion, Blonde Ambition.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, we need his number.
So I have another technical question. So I was blown away by the locations. I mean, your location scouting skills are top-notch. So you went everywhere. Tell me about going to Michigan. Also tell me about the synagogue, which I've only read about, and now I get to see with my own eyes. And I can't believe that Ed Gilroy's still there. Just unload all of that for me.
Yeah. Okay. So, so Michigan, me and my director of photography drove to Michigan, and we went to her original house, which she lived in for the first probably 12 to 15 years of her life.
That's Bay City, correct?
That one is Pontiac.
Pontiac, okay.
Yeah. And I didn't know where it was. It was very hard. I went to the library there, and that's how I ended up finding it. They had these old books in the library of who lived in the town, what they did for a living, and what the address was.
So you saw Tony Ciccone?
Yes. Yeah. And his wife, Madonna.
Oh, my God.
And so we found the house, went to the house, because I wanted to go inside the house.
Is there a plaque outside? Madonna lived here.
No, and they're kind of, I knocked on the door, and a woman answered, and I said, hi, I'm making this film about people who lived in this area. I didn't want to jump to Madonna.
Making a movie about Italian-American.
Yes, that once lived here. And
focusing on ladies
yes.
and what they lived through.
Yeah, because I don't want to say Madonna, because again, budget of this movie,
Oh, right, they totally ask you for, we're going to need thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So I figured if I could just keep it vague, and I'm just interested in this house, and maybe they'll let me film it. But she said, I really don't know. You'll have to ask my husband. He's not home yet. Can you come back? Okay. So now we went to the cemetery where her mother is and her relatives. We went there, and that's what we did to kill some time. We drove to her grandmother's house. We drove to, which she spent a lot of time at. We drove around to all the various places that she lived in the neighborhood. Then we came back to the house later, and the husband answered. Same kind of introduction. I said, do you know anything about the history of this house? And he goes, Madonna. Okay. So I said, yeah, okay. So we would like to just, film the house for this film, and would you accept X amount of dollars, which is kind of low? He said, well, do you want to film inside and outside? And at that point, it hadn't dawned on me that I could go inside. I said, well, of course, both. And
Yeah, shoot for the stars.
yeah. So he said, well, then it's going to need to be 5 times what you asked me for.
Oh.
Yeah. So I said, okay, well, let me go ask him, although I was in control. So. Yeah. So I go over to my director of photography. Okay, I'm just pretending like I'm asking you questions, whatever. Go back over to, how about half of that? He said, well, I'm not sure. He said, do I have to sign anything? I said, well, yeah, you're going to have to sign a release that I can use this footage in the film. Oh, well, then I need that full amount.
Oh, he thought you were rolling up with
Yeah,
Maverick
he wasn't
money.
playing. So anyway, I agreed. And we went in and I said, but I'm shooting every nick and cranny of that house. Yeah. So we did. We went inside, and it was pretty much the same as it looked back then, because it's a very, it wasn't a wealthy neighborhood by any means. And so most of the houses weren't redone or renovated. So it looked inside like how it probably was built.
Right, and this is presumably the house that Madonna was brought home after she was born. This is where she lived with her mother before she
The
died.
bassinet was still in the corner of her room.
But it was interesting to me, and probably not most level-headed people, but for Madonna, big Madonna fans, I wanted to see the bathroom she took a bath in.
Yeah.
And it was still there.
What color was the
Pink.
tile? Oh yeah, of course.
It was pink.
There were so many pink bathrooms.
Yeah. The tub was pink, the toilet was pink, everything was pink.
Were you able to figure out which one would have been her bedroom that she shared with her
Well,
sisters, I guess?
it was 3 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I knew which one was the master, so I knew which one was the parents' bedroom. But the other 2, I think one was boys and one was girls.
Right, because they were the 2 older boys.
Yeah. So I didn't know which one was which, though. And then just, going into the backyard, and just interesting to be where she was playing when she was a little kid, and all, that kind of thing. So that was Michigan, and then we went to the dance, the university where she studied dance, and that was with Peter Kentes, and he took us to the dance department, and with the water fountain with those pictures. I say it's still there.
Is it safe to say that Lourdes is studying in the same buildings and everything?
Yeah,
Wow.
same school. I mean, she's a dancer too, so she's in the dance.
Is she still in school?
Yeah, she goes to University of Michigan.
I thought she dropped out.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's graduated yet, but
I think she's got 1 year left, but she's also a top model in her spare time.
yeah, true. Right.
Well, and makes an appearance in the Madame X tour.
Yeah.
So she's got interpretive dancer on her resume.
Yeah, so I'm
She's
sure.
a multimedia artist.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm sure, which is kind of interesting that she's studying at the same dance department that Madonna was in. So from Michigan, then we came back, and I actually went to Paris to film Martin Schreiber, who was the photographer who did all of those original nudes.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in Paris now, so I had to go there to do his interview. Then the synagogue, Ed actually still lives in the synagogue. They actually bought the synagogue.
Do you know how much they bought it for?
What's that?
Do you know how much they bought it for?
I don't. But at the time, it was no longer a synagogue. It was just this abandoned sort of, empty rooms and stuff. The woman who owned the building was going to sell it, and she said, these were the guys that were living in it. So she said, well, I'm going to sell the building. I just want to let you guys know in case you want to buy it. And they said, well, yeah, how much? And they worked out a deal, and
not enough. That's how
I'm
much.
sure it was not.
They probably bought that for a song
Yes.
compared to what they could get for it now.
Oh yeah. And so they bought it, and Ed then went in, and so the synagogue, the basement, the outside looks the same. The basement looks the same where they played, recorded, and rehearsed. The upstairs doesn't look the same because he raised a family there. He built bedrooms and another kitchen and stuff like that. So that's been renovated. But it was kind of cool being there. It was like filming in the alleyway and in the basement where they recorded and rehearsed, and the drums were still there, the actual drums that her guitars, the guitars she wrote her first song on, all still there. And sometimes I had to sort of remind myself, because when you're making a film, you're all over the place mentally. and you're just worrying about making the film. But I had to kind of pull myself back and say, hey, just like look around and
Take it in.
Take it in. Exactly.
Feel the energy from
Yeah,
what you
like
said.
this.
He could probably charge admission at this point.
Yeah.
Like make it a museum and like charge, like get his like monthly
Totally.
property
Yeah,
tax paid for it,
100%.
you know?
Yeah.
Madonna fans would go.
Yeah.
They went to the pop-up shop. They'd certainly go to that.
Yeah, I mean, because stuff like that, things usually get torn down and replaced and everything.
Where is that exactly? Where
It's in
is it?
Queens, Corona, Queens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I've always wondered how long Madonna's commute would have been to the East Village or downtown from there.
Corona?
Yeah, from Corona.
Probably maybe like 40 minutes. Yeah, it's far.
It probably gave her enough time to jot some tunes down in her book.
Yeah, just a subway ride, it's straight through. But so then there was the music building. The music building is another place that pretty much looks the same.
Yeah, I could not believe that was still there.
Yeah, and it operates the same.
It was not renovated in any way, shape, or form.
And musicians still use it in the same way that it was used back then to rehearse in. They rent out those rooms to rehearse in. I was able to get in contact with the owner of the music building through Camille Babon, ironically. She hooked me up with him. And he was just really generous to me in letting us film there pretty much whenever we wanted and wherever we wanted. And so we were able to go to the floors that she lived on, to the rooms that she lived in.
Yeah, because she did, she was a squatter there, right? She would stay after she'd finished working and just secretly live there.
Exactly, yeah. And they kind of knew that some people were living there and they just kind of let them be, but it really wasn't supposed to be happening. But yeah, anytime, any of the rooms that you see them in the movie, that's the real room.
Wow.
That they were in. Which was, for me as a filmmaker, it's kind of like finding this fine line between, Madonna fan and filmmaker. It's kind of like, I would appreciate knowing that this is the actual room Madonna was writing songs in when you see Jamie writing songs. But do I flash that on the screen? This is the actual room she was in, So I just kind of let it be.
Yeah.
It was good for us creatively to be in that space and really like the authenticity of that, was everything. Yeah.
Where is the music building located?
That's on 8th Avenue, between 37th and 38th Street.
Which, if you think back to that time in New York, that was a really dicey area.
Oh, yeah.
Not stellar to hang out in the 80s.
No, that was a rough area. Yeah.
It's still not all that pleasant.
Not great,
but it's much better.
Yeah. Nothing in Manhattan is that bad anymore. But yeah, that was a bad time.
So we have another question from a listener, and he says, first the tone of the film was a surprise. It was nostalgic and even wistful. Look back at youth and the struggles of young people who are creative and want to be artists, and eventually about how the pursuit of these things brings some people close together and drives others apart. Wondering if the nostalgic tone surprised you, because we were really expecting something sensationalistic and initially, made me skeptical to see the film. Did it emerge from the interviews, or was that the story that you originally, hoped to tell?
Again, when you're making a documentary, you're exploring, so you can't know what it's going to become.
Yeah.
But at the same time, coming from being a fan of Madonna, I wasn't interested in the salacious or, trying to just make something that is going to make a headline to sell the movie. I wanted to tell something real and truthful. And I also wanted to show something that I knew had to be true, which is that she was at one point just a regular girl. She was not, she had this drive in her, of course, but she was just, like any of us, kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do with our lives, how to do it, how to get there, with insecurities and, sort of self-doubt and vulnerabilities and all of those things that humanize her. And that's what I wanted to show, to sort of show this is a person. She wasn't always she didn't just pop out of the sky as a pop star
Yeah.
from a music video. She was just a
And
girl.
she's not Hollywood royalty. She didn't come from a rich family. She did this on her own. And I think that's what resonates most with the fans. And I think that's what really comes through in the film is
Yeah.
the work ethic and the initial discovery that she's going through. Because I see that in the film. It's part of the spirit of, her kind of going from one thing to the next, but she's almost as surprised as everyone else is,
Absolutely, yeah. She had no idea. She couldn't know where she was going to go, how she was going to get there, or if she was going to get there, and if she did get there, to the extreme she would get there. This wasn't just someone becoming famous.
Yeah.
This is someone becoming one of the most famous, if not the most famous person in the world.
Yeah.
Ever. So I don't think she predicted that. But I discovered in making it. You saw the recording, you heard the recordings. How she sounds just like an everyday person, just fooling around, having fun. Being silly, and in these letters. I don't know if we'll have time. There's one letter that I think is interesting. I could read.
Oh, please go right ahead.
Yes.
So what I found interesting is that with her relationship with Dan, she really loved him. She really did, and he obviously really loved her too. But he wasn't as forthcoming as she was, and. I didn't want to include all of these letters in the film. A lot of them, were very personal. But I find this one in particular interesting because you see that, again, going back to, the idea of her using people. She loved him, and if anything, she showed him more how much she loved him than he showed her. And I think I know now, knowing him and speaking to him, he was more holding back out of fear that she would run if she knew how much he loved her. It was always, he always felt like he was trying to hang on to her, and if he acted a little more blasé, maybe she'd be more interested,
Yeah.
So this letter, this is now at the point where they have been making music a little bit. She knows how to play a little bit. He showed her, some stuff. But he had to have a day job, and she didn't at the time. She was just living there. So she says, "Dear boy," she called him Danny Boy a lot. "I felt so sad when you left this morning. You looked really sick about having to work. I felt truly bad that you were going somewhere and I was able to stay here doing what you want to be doing, playing music. How can we make this better? I had a berry shake after you left. Then, after yoga, I went for a walk with that boy. Then I played some drums and guitar. Ask me later about my other song. Well, I'm feeling extremely grateful to have walked into your world. Goodbye, good boy. P.S. When you get home, please tune the guitar to an open E."
Always giving orders, Madam X. It
To him.
feels like she found her chosen family with these guys, with the Breakfast Club, with Dan, and in particular, because from what I gather, from what I've read, just from when she first moved to New York, she was very lonely. She didn't know anyone, and she kind of bounced from person to person as far as a point of reference. But when she got to the synagogue, it was like she found a family, right?
Yeah, for sure. And again, it was the relationship with Dan too. Like, he was a boyfriend at the time, and again, not someone that she was just looking to step over.
Right.
Dan told me that every week she would have a different name. She would name herself. She would try
Madam
out
X.
different names. So this week she was Mademoiselle Bijou. If you want to hold that, I kind of wrote this.
She's got good handwriting. I'll give her that.
Yeah.
I'm about to start crying. This is crazy. It's Madonna's handwriting.
So you see that the relationship was authentic.
Yeah.
That's my point.
And after all these years of reading all these things, it's like I'm actually seeing proof of Madonna's love for Dan Gilroy and
Where
the
did you
Breakfast Club.
find those?
Well, from the dance.
Oh, he just
He used
gave
to
them to you.
dance property.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's other stuff in here. I have all the original slides and all the negatives of all the photos you see in the movie.
Yes, back when there was film.
Yeah.
What's that?
Back when there was film.
Yeah, exactly. I brought you guys a little gift too.
Oh,
Each
thank
get a TBT
you.
of the movie.
Yes.
I love
Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen the film, it is literally a treasure trove of Madonna footage, photographs, actual sound recordings, but it's also a very nuanced look at a specific time in an artist's life and also a specific time in New York City. I'm thoroughly impressed by it, and I love watching it. Sometimes I have it on in the background just so I can look up and kind of see what's going on. But every time we have a guest, Stefan likes to do some rapid fire questions, which I am going to turn over to him.
I wasn't prepared for lightning round just yet. But hold on. Yes, okay. So lightning round questions, I preface this with everybody, it's just meant to be an off the top of your head type of thing, where you're currently at as a Madonna fan in your Madonna journey, because sometimes it changes.
Yeah.
And they're just quick questions. So top 5 favorite Madonna songs right now.
I would say Spanish Eyes, Burning Up, Take a Bow, Promise to Try. I lost my mother when she was very young also, so that kind of resonates,
Yeah.
to me. One more, I would say, probably Oh Father. I think I really love that album.
So a lot of classic Madonna, more on the earlier side of her career.
We're practically twins. We're like a Prayer fans.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably my favorite album in general.
Okay, so your top 3, I'm assuming you've seen Madonna multiple times in concert.
He was probably one of the first to see her.
Yeah,
Stefan.
exactly. Yeah. You saw her before her tours.
Yep.
What are your top 3 favorite Madonna tours that she's done?
And I've been to every tour from the beginning. So Like a Virgin, and pre Like a Virgin.
Oh, where did you see the Virgin tour?
A Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yep. But I would say my favorites were actually the Who's That Girl tour, and probably because it was the experience. It was outside. It was at Jersey Stadium. It was called Jersey Stadium at the time, whatever it is now. But it was an outdoor stadium, and it rained. And I remember her singing "Live to Tell" and how that starts that music.
Yeah.
And the rain is coming down, and she's singing in the rain, and her hair is soaking wet, and it was just magical, really incredible.
Especially during that tour, because I feel like her hair looked better when it was wet.
Yeah. So I think Who's That Girl? Girly Show, loved Girly Show, and I'd say Blonde Ambition. Yeah.
Nice. Last but not least, do you have a favorite Madonna look? So I'm assuming maybe it might be vintage Madonna, but it can be from any photograph, video, tour. Is there one look that you're like, my God, that is Madonna?
Yeah. Something that whenever I see it, I just I can't. I have to stop and stare at it because it's just so gorgeous to me. Is that photo shoot she did with Herb Ritts, where she's got the I think it was for Interview magazine, where she's got the black severe bob. In this shot some stuff in the bathroom, and
the photos that were in the Immaculate Collection and also in Keep It Together.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the Keep It Together cover. I stand
that
that.
look.
That's the t-shirt I bought at Blonde Ambition with the side view with the hat and the black hair.
Yep, I had that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll kill the girl who stole it from me, by the way.
Yeah.
Someone stole it from you.
Yeah, her name is Gina, and I think she lives in Atlanta. So if anyone sees her...
Wow, you're calling her out. Gina.
Damn it, Gina.
It was in mint condition. Well, I, for one, I'm so happy that we got to talk to you about this film. I've been wondering about it for, months. And I feel like I feel like we got so many answers, and yeah, if you guys haven't seen it, hurry up and get on Hulu and Amazon Prime and give this one a look and tell your friends because if you're a Madonna fan, you're gonna eat it up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had one quick question for you before we wrap up the episode. Have you had, since your early Madonna experiences, have you had in the last 10, 15, 20 years, since she's become such the iconic performer that she is, have you had an instance where you've been able to reconnect with her in any way?
Yeah, and have you heard from Maverick or her management about, your film?
I have not. I haven't seen her up close and personal like that. Except for one time, we didn't speak or anything. But most fans probably know that her daughter Lourdes went to the School of the Arts in Manhattan,
Mhm.
and they put on the show Grease. And I was living in the neighborhood at the time in Hell's Kitchen, and so my husband and I went to the show.
She played Rizzo, right?
Yeah, and she was actually very good singer.
Mhm.
And so we were sitting there, and just intermission comes, and I go up to go to the bathroom, and like 3 rows behind us, Madonna and Rocco, and she's sitting there texting on her phone.
She does that at public events.
She's always texting, right? So then I text my husband. I'm like, "Look behind you, Madonna's there," and he looks. I'm like, "The woman with the phone lit up in her face. That's Madonna." And he's like, "Haha, yeah, well, LOL, whatever." I'm like, "No, I'm serious." So then we come back and we passed her. Now at that point, because the lights were up for intermission, so everyone's gawking now. They see her.
Mhm.
But then when the show finished, I kind of, as the audience, the rows are emptying out, I timed my footing and my steps so that I would end up directly behind her.
You're a true Madonna fan. I applaud you.
And yeah, so I was directly behind her. Like I could have tugged on the back of her hair, but I didn't. But that was the last time I was anywhere within that much that close proximity.
Hey, that
to
works
her.
for me.
You should have. Oh well, you hadn't done the documentary at that point, right? I was
What's
gonna
that?
say,
What?
You hadn't done the documentary at that point because
No.
you need to always carry a DVD with you whenever you know you might
I mean,
see her. And
I've heard through the grapevine. I don't know how much is true or not. I've heard from various because I got to know a lot of Madonna fans through making this movie, and a lot of the bigger fans or whatever.
Mhm.
So I've heard through the grapevine that I know she's well aware of the movie. That I know for a fact. But that she has seen what we were doing through Instagram, and that she's kind of just blown away when I heard, this is what I heard specifically, she saw Jamie and said, "What the fuck?"
She probably thought Jamie was created in a lab,
Yeah,
They're cloning
somebody
me now.
cloned me in the 80s, But yeah, that's as far as I know. That she liked what we were doing because we haven't had any pushback.
No cease and desist.
No, and
well, it's a good thing you didn't tug on her hair at that performance of Grease because then she would have thought maybe you cut her hair.
Oh yeah,
and
then
took it to a lab, and that's how they got the cloning.
exactly. Yeah. No, I take the fact that they haven't pushed back or haven't, as in Madonna's way, sort of an unspoken nod of approval.
Yeah, you
by leaving
peacefully
us alone.
coexist. Yeah,
Yes.
because she hasn't been very tolerant of that in the past.
Right, exactly. I think if she had something bad to say, she would have no problem
Well,
saying
it's
it.
a respectful film. That's the thing. If you had come out trashing her,
Yeah.
then people would have been like, no, sorry. But it's
Right.
a very respectful look at her and her career, and you're actually hearing the story from the men who were with her
Yeah.
at that time in her life.
Yeah, and I have a lot of non-Madonna fans that would write to me and say, I was never a big, I didn't dislike her. I just didn't, really care either way. But now after watching this movie, it's like I have a whole different respect for her. And, and not that Madonna needed my help in that, but like that was part of my, goal was to sort of show the world and Madonna fans and non-fans alike that this was someone who worked her ass off to get what she has.
Ultimately, yeah, that was my biggest takeaway when I first saw Truth or Dare, and that's what I wanted everyone that was a non-fan to take away is the work ethic and how she inspires us to be better versions of ourselves because we can relate to that, and that is definitely a big part of your film. So thank you.
When is the sequel?
I mean, I think like for a while, I have to take a breather from Madonna creatively. So I'm on to other.
Oh, nice.
Well, actually, I read in an interview, I don't remember which one it was, that you had interest in working on a film about Cyndi Lauper too.
I had been in touch with her management. But Cyndi, the last I've gotten, they were open to it. They've seen Madonna and the Breakfast Club. Cyndi has so much going on right now.
Yeah.
Through like 2021.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, she like writes Broadway shows, you know, no big deal.
Exactly. Yeah, musicals. Yeah. So it's kind of like more like trying to nail her down for another project. It's not something that's going to be realistic for them right now. You know, and I wanted her for this one, for the next one, if I do another musically based historical kind of documentary type movie, I want the person to participate.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think Cyndi has a really great origin story that not a lot of people know. You know, she was maybe eclipsed by Madonna's fame, but her artistry, you know, just keeps on going.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. Yeah.
Well, Guy, thank you so much for coming on the show today, telling us some stories,
Oh, you're welcome.
bringing some Madonna swag.
That was fun.
We're gonna dive into that portfolio that you brought because there's a lot of goodies in there that we can't do on the show.
Yes, thanks for coming out. And guys, this was fun. And also, you know, continue to check out Madonna and the Breakfast Club on Hulu and Amazon Prime, you know, and, you know, spread the word because it's a great film. And I want everyone to see it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can find us on at MLVC Podcast on Instagram. You can listen to us wherever podcasts are heard. That would be Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Luminary, and Podbean. We'll catch you guys next time. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.